Before I jump in, let me just say this, you're not going to believe what happened when an HOA Karen tried to call 911 on my wife for simply pumping gas. What started as a petty confrontation spiraled into police sirens, neighbors peeking out their windows, a receipt that changed everything, and cops literally doubled over in laughter. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because stories like this only get wilder from here, and you won't want to miss the next one. Revolving light. My wife and I had always thought moving into a nice, quiet suburban neighborhood would mean peace, privacy, and maybe a few cookouts with friendly neighbors, but instead we ended up with the one thing every homeowner dreads: a full-blown, self-appointed, power-drunk HOA Karen who believed she was sheriff, mayor, and moral guardian all rolled into one. And if you think I'm exaggerating, just wait until you hear how she called the cops on my wife at a gas station of all places, and the entire saga exploded into something so ridiculous that the police officers were literally laughing until tears ran down their faces when they read a single receipt. So let me start at the beginning, because this wasn't just some random misunderstanding, this was a war brewing for months. Ever since we bought the house, this woman, let's just call her Karen, because no other name fits, made it her life's mission to nitpick every little thing we did, whether it was the color of our garden hose not matching the HOA-approved shade of beige, or the fact that we left our trash cans out for an extra 12 minutes past pickup, or even that my wife's car was, in her words, too flashy for the neighborhood, which by the way was just a 5-year-old blue SUV with a car seat in the back, hardly a Lamborghini, but you know how these HOA enforcers are, they thrive on drama. The breaking point came on a hot Saturday morning when my wife drove down to the local gas station just outside the neighborhood. She had our toddler in the backseat, was wearing her gym clothes, and just wanted to fill up before running errands. Now, here's where the absurdity begins, because somehow, in Karen's mind, my wife simply pumping gas became a crime worth calling 911 over. Apparently, Karen followed her there, parked at the next pump, and began ranting about how my wife was using a stolen credit card. My wife, baffled, thought she was joking at first. She wasn't. Karen claimed she saw my wife sneaking into a stranger's car earlier that week, which was actually just my wife borrowing her sister's minivan when ours was at the shop. She insisted my wife was a danger to the community, and demanded the gas station clerk stop the pump until authorities arrived. The poor cashier, caught between a hysterical suburban vigilante and a calm mom just trying to get gas, shrugged helplessly, and that's when Karen pulled out her phone, dialed 911, and began shrieking into the receiver about credit card fraud in progress. My wife tried to reason with her, even showed her ID and the matching credit card, but Karen waved it off like she was some master detective uncovering a con artist. Within minutes, the wail of sirens echoed down the street, and 2 squad cars pulled into the station. My wife told me later she felt her stomach drop, not because she did anything wrong, but because she realized this was about to become another one of those ridiculous HOA Karen crusades that somehow spiral into bigger headaches. The officers approached, hands resting near their belts, and Karen launched into her dramatic performance about how my wife was scamming the pump with stolen info. She even tried to get bystanders to back her up, though most of them looked at her like she'd escaped from a soap opera set. My wife, bless her, calmly handed the officer her ID, her credit card, and most importantly, the printed receipt from the gas pump that had her full name on it. That's when the twist came. The officer looked at the receipt, blinked, then showed it to his partner. They both burst out laughing. Like, not a chuckle, not a polite grin, full on, can't breathe, doubled over laughter. Karen sputtered, demanded to know what was so funny, and one of the cops finally managed to say between laughs, "Ma'am, this receipt literally proves the card belongs to her. Her name is printed right here. It even says, 'Thank you,' my wife's full name, at the bottom. She's not stealing gas, she's paying for it." Karen, red-faced but undeterred, argued that receipts can be faked. The officer, still grinning, shook his head and said, "Unless she's running a high-level forgery ring at the neighborhood gas station, I think you might just owe her an apology." But of course, Karen never apologizes. Instead, she tried to pivot the accusation, claiming my wife was breaking HOA rules by even using that gas station because it wasn't the approved vendor. Yes, you heard me right. she believed there were HOA-approved gas stations, which was so outrageous that one of the officers actually had to walk away to compose himself because he was laughing too hard. By now, a small crowd had gathered, some recording on their phones, and the whole scene turned into a mini neighborhood circus. When I got the call from my wife, I rushed over, half panicked and half ready to finally confront this nonsense once and for all. By the time I arrived, the officers were already wrapping up, basically telling Karen that if she kept making false emergency calls, she could be fined or even charged for misuse of 911 services. That's when the crowd really started whispering, and you could see Karen realizing her little stunt had backfired spectacularly. But here's the kicker. As we were about to leave, the gas station clerk came outside holding another piece of paper, the security footage printout of the transaction. He handed it to the officers, who glanced at it and immediately lost it again, laughing so hard that one of them slapped it on the hood of the squad car. Why? Because the footage clearly showed my wife calmly swiping her own card, while Karen was in the background practically craning her neck over my wife's shoulder like a cartoon villain. The officers told Karen she was free to leave, but strongly suggested she reconsider how she spends her weekends, which was about the politest way of saying, stop being a menace. My wife and I drove home, shaking our heads, and for the next week, the entire neighborhood buzzed with whispers about Karen versus the gas pump. Some folks were on our side, some tried to stay neutral, and a few die-hard wall loyalists actually defended her, claiming she was just trying to protect property values, as if tackling imaginary gas fraud somehow kept lawns greener. The funniest twist of all came a few days later when we got a letter, not from the HOA, but from the city, confirming that a formal complaint had been filed against Karen for repeated misuse of emergency services. Word got out fast, and suddenly the self-proclaimed enforcer of the block had become the neighborhood's biggest joke. People started nicknaming her Gas Pump Karen, and even the local kids rode their bikes past her house chanting it. But my favorite moment, one of the cops who responded that day actually stopped by our house off-duty to drop off a copy of the incident report for our records. He told us, still chuckling, that in his 10 years on the force, he had never seen someone incriminate themselves harder than Karen did by yelling about gas station conspiracies while holding a Starbucks cup with her own name misspelled on it. We laughed until our sides hurt. So in the end, the only crime that day was Karen wasting everyone's time and exposing herself as the most ridiculous HOA vigilante our neighborhood had ever seen. And you better believe the next HOA meeting was packed, with everyone bringing it up until she stormed out red-faced. Sometimes the best revenge isn't fighting back, it's letting someone's own nonsense unravel in front of a crowd, and that's exactly what happened when the cops burst out laughing at a gas pump receipt that proved, without a shadow of doubt, that my wife's only crime was living rent-free in Karen's drama-filled imagination.